Well, let's go back to Soweto now, where Maponya Mall management, police and associations have been addressing Uber and Bolt drivers after clashes just last night. My colleague Heidi Giokos there for us to give us some feedback on how that meeting is going. Heidi, great to have you back. I mean, from the clip that I saw a bit earlier on, as we were, all witnessing that engagement, it seems some of the Bolt or Uber drivers, the e-hailing drivers, were not too happy with what was being said. But what have you heard from that engagement?
Yes, I think let's actually get some perspective, because we were told that there was supposed to be a meeting that was supposed to take place at 1 o'clock today with all stakeholders. But it seems as though, hearing firsthand from the management from Maponya Mall, it seems as though there was some dissatisfaction from some Uber and Bolt drivers. But let's get some perspective. We are joined by Tato, who is from the Soweto E-Hailing Association. Thank you once again. Maybe just tell us what exactly transpired here, because it seems as though there's a planned meeting for 1 o'clock, but some Uber and Bolt drivers are not happy with this because they want the issues addressed now.
Yes, it's unfortunate that when you are actually addressing a crowd of people, you tend to get people that will pull aside and all that. But at the end of the day, what we need are facts and factual stuff. So we need to sit down with the Taxi Association and with all the malls that we have in Soweto and find an amicable way how we're going to address this issue. But at the end of the day, there's nothing much we can do as people are pulling on side. But I do believe in the drivers that they are disciplined. It's just minor those who could not understand.
But there are also calls for the mall to close its gates, to not allow minibus taxis. Is that what you're calling for?
Actually, they were asking that if we are not working now and we're going to have this meeting, that we are going to find a resolution. They wanted everybody not to work. But with the concern that we are saving the community here, we cannot keep the community also desperate with regarding that. So the gentlemen are also all allowed to work if they wish to work until we finish with the meeting and give them the resolution that we're going to have in the meeting.
Okay. Will the Taxi Association be part of this meeting?
Yes, they are part of the meeting.
Okay. I want you to clarify again. The issue that happened yesterday, I know you don't want to speculate, you mentioned this earlier, but does it have anything to do with clashes between minibus taxis and Uber and Bolt drivers?
In my experience of life, when you clash with someone, it starts somewhere. So far, we haven't clashed with any taxis here. We've been having meetings with them. Last week, we had a meeting sitting at Maponya, and we were under the impression that we're still under the impression that everything is on par. We actually have an understanding that anybody who's driving for e-hailing can actually enter the mall. But now, if I'm going to believe that they have anything to do with it, it will amaze me. It will be shocking also.
Okay, so what do you believe happened yesterday?
Nothing beside that. There's a criminal element that has infiltrated this business. It's either maybe we are being used as pawns for the taxi wars, or the taxi wars are being used against us. But either way, whoever did this, they're doing it out of the criminal elements, regardless if it's the taxis or the minibuses.
What about illegal Bolt and Uber drivers, those that are not registered and are offering cheaper rides to those that are here at the mall?
I'll speak from on a point of humanity, is that those guys are more desperate than to be on a fighting scale. They need just a source of income to make money. I don't see them being resourceful enough also to put an attack of that magnitude. The level of the attack that was done yesterday was orchestrated by people who are well organized and they are heavily armed.
Those that were attacked, I'm sorry to interject, were they registered Uber and Bolt drivers?
Most amongst one person that was actually shot were registered within Uber and Bolt services, yes.
Okay, so maybe just elaborate in terms of them being armed. So somebody was actually shot yesterday. We do know that the police is investigating a culpable homicide matter as well. But maybe just elaborate on that. That's obviously a very volatile and violent situation if you're telling me they are armed.
Yes, there is someone who was shot, and the people who were armed were the criminals that came to the mall. And yeah, they had guns and they discharged guns, firearms. They shot here in the yard. There were cartridges that were found yesterday in the parking area of Maponya Mall, and also there was a loud bang that was happening here.
So come 1 o'clock, you'll be speaking with the police, the management and the Taxi Association to find a resolution to this, because this is obviously very volatile. And you've also mentioned the fact that this is not the first time you've seen such violence when it comes to Uber drivers.
Yes, this is not the first time this is happening, but why is it in this magnitude is because we actually have we are running our association now in a legal state whereby now we are getting more organized, and we have a database that we are capturing as association, and we're trying by all level means that we try and eradicate the business itself, so that whoever that is actually on Bolt or Uber, we have to look into it that we give sustainable business ways of doing business in the industry.
Okay, what about Uber and Bolt's responsibility in all of this? Because at the end of the day, you know, they are the ones that you work for because you use their apps, you use their facilities. Have they understood the dangers that you have expressed when it comes to Uber and Bolt drivers?
Uber and Bolt, the only thing they care about is the pockets, nothing more. With me saying that is that from a business side of things is that hardly any driver can make a sustainable amount of money on a daily basis, yet Uber and Bolt are taking far a lot of commission. Worst part on it, it is understandable if a business will conduct itself in that manner, but if they were giving back to the industry itself, whereby they're giving the guys bursaries, educational plans, funeral plans, medical plans, and they always claim that they do that. We have a lot of evidence in our council, which is EPCO, and we can show that there's been drivers. There's a driver that was now interviewed at Cutting Edge that is on wheelchair. He never been seen a cent from e-hailing companies. None of them actually really care about the clients, and the only thing they care about is them finding a way to source money from poor background families.
So Tato, who must take responsibility? Who do you think is behind this violence that we saw yesterday?
Which violence?
Who do you think is behind this violence that we saw yesterday?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know until we get our facts.
You're part of the e-hailing association in Soweto. You know what the problems are on the ground.
The thing is, e-hailing has caused a lot of frustration amongst people. Anyone can be actually the orchestrator of this violence that happened yesterday. And at the end of the day, remember that the crimes that have been occurring in this country, which the government never talks about, they're always silencing them, but they are happening, and drivers are taking account to them. I'll make an example with our Secretary General from EPCO. His brother was killed a couple of months back in Nguni. And Nguni actually is playing the biggest role in finding the criminals and helping the cops, but yet they lost evidence of that. Now we have to, on our own, find ways to actually resource ourselves to actually do the work that the police is supposed to be doing. With that, it causes the criminals to retaliate. So at the end of the day, hence I'm saying, Uber and Bolt has caused such a frustration that for me, they are the moving weapon for people to be attacked and people to be frustrated. Even this violence that is uprooting in Soweto, I have no one to blame besides Uber and Bolt.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. I just want to ask my colleague Teddy to maybe just take a walk with me on this side. You can see there are many Bolt and Uber drivers here at Maponya Mall. There's also a high police presence. We have seen JMPD officers coming through, as well as SAPs as well. There is a police in yellow on standby, and obviously it's because the situation does remain rather volatile. Earlier on, I've actually tweeted a video that shows a taxi that was trying to come through this particular road, but it was blocked by the Uber and Bolt drivers. And as you heard, Tato, who is from the Soweto e-hailing association, indicating that the call was for the taxis not to operate because the Uber drivers are not operating, but they came to a decision that they cannot inconvenience the community here. I had also spoken to grannies, gogos, that come to Maponya Mall to get their SASSA grant, to get their basic necessities, and they were expressing to us how really difficult this is for them because they are old, they have a lot to carry. Now Ubers are too scared to come and park inside the mall, they're parking outside. But the visuals that we are showing you right now is it seems as though this particular entrance 3 to Maponya Mall, is being blocked and cars are being asked to turn away because Uber and Bolt drivers want there to be some sorts of solidarity in terms of there being a resolution to what has been happening and what happened yesterday. So it is business as usual, but there is some kind of disruption now because of this entrance and cars being rediverted from using this particular entrance, Tumelo.
equally concerning, not only for the drivers and also for, those who are passengers, for Maponya Mall, customers, people like you've spoken to, the gogos that rely on Maponya Mall for their SASSA grants, but also rely on, e-hailing or taxis. I mean, this violence, this attack could have definitely impacted and affected any of those innocent people. Those shots we heard in that video could have easily been stray bullets that have, attacked any innocent bystanders or witnesses, for example. So very much concerning that it seems like it's affecting the whole community and not just e-hailing drivers. And I wonder what the mall management is saying about the safety inside their mall, because that's why I suppose this engagement and meeting was important, not only to address this attack on, the e-hailing drivers, but also the safety of Maponya Mall, customers, people that rely on the mall for various goods and services. And I suppose at this stage we still haven't heard from the mall management. Heidi?
Yes, what we do know, Tumelo, is that the management was here to address the Uber and Bolt drivers, indicating that they are trying their very best to sort this problem out. They want to make sure that everybody feels safe when they do come here to Maponya Mall. When we did speak to Tato from the Soweto E-Hailing Association, we did ask him whether or not he believes he actually, the mall actually has done something to address this issue. And they've indicated that the mall does help and has tried to facilitate as much as possible. But when there are possible criminal elements to this and criminality at play, it's very difficult to control the situation, because we know yesterday it happened so quickly. Just from our experience, Teddy and I, when we got here, we were met by quite a hostile security guard who was basically telling us we're not allowed to do a live crossing outside the gate of Maponya Mall, whereas people were entering the mall yesterday and attacking Uber and Bolt's drivers. So it does seem as though the mall is under fire in terms of what are they going to be doing to control this. They have released a statement, Tumelo, but unfortunately the statement that has been sent to me is not opening at this point. But when we did hear them engaging with the actual Uber and Bolt drivers, they did indicate that they're trying their very best to deal with the situation. And at 1 o'clock, when the meeting happens at the Klipspruit police station, they are going to obviously try and find a way to come to a solution, because it is rather volatile. I mean, the situation's so volatile, there's actually a chopper that's up in the air, a police chopper. There is a police signal, there's a high police presence. So I think that there are concerns that violence might spark again if Uber and Bolt drivers are not happy with the outcome of that meeting.
Because I could definitely hear, emotions and tensions rising, even the attempt of that engagement between, Soweto United E-Hailing Association Chairperson Tato Ramaila trying to speak to the crowds, law enforcement as well. And those emotions, I suppose, could have emanated, Heidi, from the fact that people were injured. Someone was shot at, an e-hailing driver. It could have been any one of the drivers. And we've known for many years now that the lives of e-hailing drivers has been, on the line when they take on this role, this job, trying to feed their families, but also on this app, which Tato says it seems the app owners couldn't care less about, intervening and assuring the safety of drivers. They care more about the profits. Those emotions were quite evident because it is their lives, it's their colleagues' lives. And I remember, Heidi, even Tato alluding to one of the drivers from Naledi who was just buried recently, where the family could not even afford to bury their loved one. And they themselves, as the E-Hailing Association, only knowing later on that their fellow, driver and colleague was in the mortuary for 2 weeks. So that just showing how, of course, the economic impact in this country has led to drivers obviously opting for this route to make a living. But I suppose that not being met so kindly by others, and also some of the criminal activity that Tato alluded to earlier speaking to you.
Yes, exactly. Tumelo, I do think there is great concern. I mean, this is people's lives, this is people's livelihoods. It's a basic service that is needed, and if people opt to rather use Uber and Bolt, they should be allowed to do so and be allowed to do so safely. We do know of situations where sometimes people go missing, or sometimes people are attacked and even raped in Uber and Bolts. And this is why Tato from the Soweto E-Hailing Association is indicating that Uber and Bolt, the organizations themselves, the companies themselves rather, should take some form of responsibility when it comes to what is playing out here. This is not the first time we have seen this kind of violence playing out. Previously, we saw it with clashes between taxi associations and Uber and Bolt, the e-hailing sector. And now there seems to be a lot of confusion as to what really sparked the violence that we saw yesterday. We do know that people were actually really badly physically hurt yesterday. The one Uber driver that we did speak to this morning that asked not to be on camera or even be mentioned because he fears for his life, basically had a bandage around his head, and he was speaking about how he was attacked. His key was being ripped out of his car. They stole 1,600 rand. They also stole his phone, and they were very aggressive about wanting his personal belongings and money. So the situation does remain volatile in terms of who's really behind this violence that we saw playing out yesterday. Vehicles were also burnt and torched. So this is probably why you're also seeing this high police presence. There were a number of police officers behind me just a second ago, but you can see the police in yellow. You can see community members coming out, really trying to get to the bottom of this and resolve this, because at the end of the day, you have Uber drivers, according to the Soweto E-Hailing Association, that are almost being killed and attacked on a daily basis. So they are trying their very best to bring stability to this, because as I mentioned, at the end of the day, it's about lives and livelihoods.
All right, Heidi, of course, that's where we're going to wrap it up for now. But as soon as there are any other developments out in Soweto, especially with that promised meeting between the Maponya Mall management, law enforcement and e-hailing drivers alongside the Soweto United E-Hailing Association, we'll be sure to catch up with you, colleagues. But you can continue to see those visuals of the SAPS and community members and e-hailing drivers all standing just, I suppose, in anticipation to find some interventions, really, to what could be the way forward to save lives, assure the safety of e-hailing drivers and also Maponya Mall customers, but also finding some interventions to ensure that whatever criminality or rift that is working against e-hailing drivers can be put to a stop. Well, the SAPS releasing the statement saying they will continue with their investigations of attempted murder and malicious damage to property, saying no arrests have been made so far. They continue to try and find the motive behind the attacks that were witnessed yesterday through those viral videos on social media. So keep it locked right here on eNCA as we continue to bring you all developments around the story.